good when you do not have to travel these highways alone. And it is especially pleasing when our people demonstrate their love by being with you. The idea of black people on Sundays going from one venue to another is not new. As a matter of fact, when we all grew up, we know that on Sundays we went from one church to another. We did the 11 o'clock service, and then there was some other church that everybody packed up and went over there. And then in the evening we went somewhere else. So that same kind of spirit is being shown on this level. And this is really amazing because unlike the church, which in many instances is approved by the white man, demonstrated by the white Jesus and the American flag, that drapes the institution, despite the fact the First Amendment says there's supposed to be separation of church and state. We bring the state into the church, and that defines the state of the church. But given that, it is certainly wonderful that so many of us can come out and be with African echoes. A lot of people obviously characterize this as being African-centered, but it's also being African-interested and also having African interests. The key fact here is that we are here because we are the custodians of our history. That history has to be preserved, and then it has to be bequeathed to another generation. And if there ever come a time in our race where all of us forego our responsibility of preserving the rich history of our people, then at that time there will be no hope for the race. And so what is being done here, what is being done in so many other places, is so important. I also want to acknowledge the Brothers Glass and the Razar bookstore. I think I'm pronouncing it right, but I certainly know they're from Trenton, New Jersey. I want them to stand and let us give them a warm round of applause. So we know that people are coming far and near in order to be with us. On December 2nd, the USA Today ran a story on Thurgood Marshall. And the question that it raised, in effect, was whether Thurgood Marshall was a snitch. We want to broaden the question tonight, but we are going to deal with the snitch component of it. We want to broaden it to include the question of the civil rights legacy of Thurgood Marshall and its impact on African liberation. The civil rights legacy of Thurgood Marshall and its impact on African liberation. Now, in all of this, the question of whether black people have the capacity to snitch or not in a land such as America has really been resolved years ago. We certainly do not start with the proposition that it is impossible or it is unprecedented that blacks have snitched on other blacks. Going back to Denmark Vesey, for example, a brother who by all means could have left South Carolina as a, quote, free person, and yet chose to stay because of the love that he had for his people and labored to liberate his people. And in the midst of his plans to liberate his people, was a house Negro who was more attached to the master than he was to his brothers and sisters who had a deep thirst for liberty. We understand that. We understand that on January 15, 1923, a committee of 8 under the banner Marcus Garvey Must Go wrote a letter to the Attorney General, Daughtry, outlining how Garvey had to be dealt with. We understand that. But this is important because it has become a barrier to our liberation. The reason why is because white people place such a great value on information. They understand that information is power. The great international bankers put more emphasis on information than anything else in order for them to acquire wealth and to maintain wealth. The Rothschild family was able to take Europe because of information and disinformation that they were spreading at the time. So we understand the significance of information. Information is such that it is even classified. If you get there in the area of stocks, it's inside information. If you deal in the area of the law, it's privileged information. If you're in the intelligence bureau, it's classified and declassified information. And so information is a subject unto itself, but it is the basis for all people acquiring power. And this is the reason why our assembling here is a threat by our mere assembling here, acquiring information. This is something that was never envisioned by the so-called founding fathers. When even after the passage of the Constitution, slave codes were announced, it said that 3 blacks could not meet unless a white person was present. I remember when we were involved in the Central Park jogger trial, and that was certainly a critical period. One of my clients, Michael Briscoe, whose case was dismissed before trial, and he did not have to go to trial on the charge. But I remember in our pretrial hearings where we wanted to show that the state lacked probable cause to stop these young men, that there was no basis for the stop in the first place, and therefore any confession, statement, or admission that arose out of the unlawful stop was inadmissible. So I remember as I was cross-examining one of the arresting officers, and I said, well, on this particular evening, you went into the park, you didn't see anybody in the park, is that correct? And he said, no, I didn't see anybody in the park. And I said, you got no identification of anybody, is that correct, from anybody in the park? He said, no, we didn't get any identification. We went in the park. After we got the call, we checked on the young lady, and then we immediately began to just run up and down the neighborhoods. And I said, well, at that time you came upon about a group of 10 young black men, is that correct? And he said, yes, we did. And I said, they were not running when you saw them, were they? And he said, no, they were not. And I said, they were walking in a very civilized manner, yes. They were. There was no evidence from their outward appearance that gave you the reason to believe that they had been engaged in illegal activity. Is that correct? Now, I'm knowing that I'm scoring all kinds of points and getting right to the essence of it. And so then I said, well, what was the basis for the stop? And he said this was an unlawful assembly. 10 black men walking up the street is an unlawful assembly. And so that was the basis for the stop. That's the reason why we arrested them. Unlawful assembly. So it shows you that despite all that we think that we have gotten in terms of racial progress and in terms of racial liberation, white folks' minds are back 400 years ago. That's where their minds are. Your minds may be somewhere else, but their minds are 400 years ago. The only thing they saw is 10 Negroes without a white man. All right? That's what they saw. 10 Negroes without a white man. And so, as you know, one thing led to another, and many of these young men are behind bars right now as a result of that particular case. But it begins to point out something. When I first started practicing law back in 1973, I learned things that law school did not prepare you for. And there really was not any black lawyers who took you under their wings to help you. And so you really had to learn it yourself. And I generally did because I spent so many hours in the library because I wanted to be good. I didn't want to go out downtown and embarrass myself, but I wanted to challenge the system. Now, I knew that if I was boogalooing every night, doing cocktail sips, then it was going to be difficult for me to go downtown with a thorough knowledge of the law and stand in front of a racist judge and defend my people. And so I had no other alternative but to every night study all night. And I suppose I really gathered that because, and I say this, there's always a need for role models. When I was in Atlanta, Georgia, I remember several lawyers in Georgia that were really good. And it's unfortunate that their names are not well known. One was C.B. King, whom some of you might know from the Albany movement. But C.B. was so bright. He was so bright as an attorney. He could have gone anywhere and practiced law. It wouldn't have made any difference, but he was in Albany, Georgia. He was so bright that when he went into a courtroom in these little South Georgia counties, the judges in those counties would have their dictionary while he was talking, and every so often, wait now, boy, what's that word you said? All right. All right. And CB, he said, well, spell that word. And then they would spell it, and they would look down the word. And he said, all right, keep going. And then it gets so far, and then they had to stop him again. Well, that was the kind of lawyer he was. He had a real mastery of the English language. I don't think there was a word in the dictionary that CB did not have a ready working knowledge of. A tremendous lawyer. And so there was C.B. King, and then there was Howard Moore, who some of you may have known later, who represented Angela Davis out in California. Him, and I remember when Howard was in Atlanta, and sometime I would be over at Pascal's, which was really then the headquarters for the movement. In the 60s, it was on Hunter Street then. It's no longer Hunter Street, M.L. King Drive, but then it was Hunter Street. And I remember sometime around 11 o'clock at night, Howard would come in, and sometime I would go over and sit with him, and I would say, well, you know, Mr. Moore, what are you doing here this late at night? He said, well, I just came by to get a cup of coffee. His office was right across the street at then 859.5 Hunter Street, and he would go back. He said, I got to go back. I'll be there the rest of the night. Now, when I graduated from law school, I had no idea what a lawyer was supposed to do, all right, because my parents were not lawyers. I did not have a lawyer in the family, so I had no idea. But I remembered Howard Moore. So when I started practicing law and everybody would leave the office at 7 o'clock, and they said, man, come on, join us. I said, no, I got to stay here all night. Now, I didn't know why I was staying there all night, all right? But I knew that's what Howard Moore did, all right? And so I said, well, I got to stay there all night. And that's what I did. And then as I stayed there all night, I began to get acquainted with the law, but I knew that I was supposed to be there all night. And so that's how I really got started in terms of really developing a mastery for the law. But as I got involved in court cases, I found out things that I really probably was not prepared for, because I had gone through 3 years of law school, and there's a tremendous amount of brainwashing that goes on there. Even though, like myself, I had been involved in the movement before I went to law school, but in 3 years, isolated from people, it can have an impact on you. And so it can take your mind. That's the reason why I can understand why some of these brothers and sisters have gone AWOL on the race, because of the training that they have gotten while they was in school. But when I first started practicing law, one of my first experiences, and all of this is leading up to Thurgood, but it's a good background. I remember I was representing a young man out in Staten Island. One of my first cases, as a matter of fact, when I got involved in criminal law, for whatever reason, my first 20 or 30 trials were all 8 felonies. They were murder cases. And, I mean, that was really rough. To start out unseasoned with nothing but murder cases on your docket, that was really rough. But I remember I went out to Staten Island. In fact, the first time we went out there, Leola and I both went out there. And this must have been about 76. And we literally did not know that many people in New York, because as I said so many times, when we came here, we literally got off the boat and did not know anybody in town. Now, you know, over a period of years, you get to learn a lot of people, but we literally did not know people when we got off the boat. And so Leola said, well, you know, I think I better go out there with you. I don't know what Leola could have done. But anyway, she felt like she needed to be out there with me, because it was a real hot case. It was a case involving a white woman, elderly white woman, who had been found in her bed, spread eagle, tied to the bed. She'd been raped and stabbed about 15 or 20 times. And so, to make matters even worse, her son was a police in New York City Police Department in Staten Island. And as things happened, I remember when I went to the cell where my client was, he had already confessed to it. And he confessed because he was living with his girlfriend, who was white. And the police said that they were going to bust her for drugs if he did not give a confession. To make matters worse, he was out on parole, and the girlfriend's uncle was an assemblyman in the New York State Assembly. So it was really rough. When we walked into the courthouse out there in Staten Island in 76, and I tell you, this was a real awakening. It was so packed, but the only people in there were cops. It was a sea of blue. There was nobody else in there but cops, and the judge, and that was it. And so, and obviously I walked in, and everybody was just converging really on me. We didn't think we were going to get out of there that day. They even threatened to bomb the courthouse. That's how tight things were, you know, in terms of a baptism. And so I went downstairs, and my client was talking to this white lawyer. And his mother had sought a lawyer through the National Conference of Black Lawyers, and I was with the National Conference of Black Lawyers then. And so I went out because she didn't feel like anybody out there was going to represent her son adequately. So I remember as I was standing there, he was carrying on this exchange with this lawyer. And the lawyer trying to get certain information from him and was saying, Booker, you know, it's no win. You may do better if you put yourself on the mercy of the court. Don't waste the court's time. Don't outrage anybody. Plead guilty today and get this over with. And so I'm standing there listening, because I suppose this guy must have figured that I was some family member at best, or maybe his preacher. All right? But certainly he had no idea that I was another attorney. So I'm sitting there listening to him, and so he says, you know, Briggs, you know, you got a record, all of that, but we could probably try to save you. And so at that time, Booker, who was just looking at him and wasn't saying anything, and I know that was sort of odd because he wasn't really responding to what this man was saying. He was just looking at him real fixed. And he said, don't I know you? No. That's what the guy said. No, you don't know me. He said, are you sure? Then you got to remember, Booker got a rap sheet about that long. And the guy says, no, I don't know you, Briggs, first time I ever laid eyes on you. And so he said, about 15 years ago, weren't you employed in the Richmond County District Attorney's office? He said, yeah. He said, didn't you send me to prison? And the guy said, ha, 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 ha. You got a good memory, Briggs. And he said, man, get out of here. And so that was the end of that. Now, I say all that because we really got involved in this case. But the case, like most cases, had more than meets the eye. And white people always want to suppress the truth. They don't like information ever spread. They like for all to be secret, where they can hold it on people. They don't like to air it, which is why more than 95% of the cases are plea bargains. Not only for the fact of expediting matters and all of that, but also for the fact of just suppressing the truth, not airing the truth, you see, keeping that information secret. And so I remember as I was involved in this case, one day the judge came and called me into his chamber with the district attorney, and he said, Maddox, you've gone far enough. Go back outside in a few minutes. And he said it so casually as though this must have been the routine. He said, go back outside. I'll be out there in a minute. We're going to plead Briggs guilty in a few minutes. I said, excuse me? I said, go back outside. We're getting ready to plead him guilty. I said, Judge, I'm representing the man. I said, he has not expressed any interest in pleading guilty. He said, didn't I tell you to go outside? He said, and tell that man that we're getting ready to plead him guilty. You the lawyer, aren't you? I said, yes. He said, well, I just told you that we're going to plead him guilty. He said, what do you think you're supposed to be doing here? And I said, well, I'm supposed to be representing my client. Well, I began to understand that this must be a routine, all right, that I did not understand, all right? It was obviously, it was some kind of routine that I really wasn't on to. And so I said, well, Judge, I can't do that. I said, I can't do that. He said, okay. All right. He said, we'll adjourn to another date. And they did. And then one day, I submitted an affidavit where I stated that I was going to go to trial on another case in Kings County. And the case did not go to trial, but I did go to court that day under the expectation that it was going to go to trial because that had been the representation. And I put that in the affidavit. Came back to Staten Island on another date, and the judge said, Maddox, we want to see you in chambers. And I went in. He said, you know we got you now. I said, you got me? He said, yeah. He said, you remember that affidavit that you filed with the court? I said, yes. He said, that wasn't true. He said, you just committed perjury. He said, we're going to prosecute you to the hilt unless you give us Briggs. And I said, Judge, you want to prosecute me to the hilt. All right, you want to prosecute me to the hilt. I say all of that only to lead into really what we're getting ready to talk about in terms of the subject. When white people give you a license, it's like giving you a loan. It's like selling you food at the local market. It comes at a higher price. It comes at a higher price. White man goes in to buy a house, low interest rate. You go in, and they throw usury on you. All right? All right, you go and buy food. It's at a high rate, high prices. White people can get the best for low prices. All right? It comes at a higher price. Same thing with the practice of law. When they give you that license, you have to pay an added fee in order to maintain it. See, that's the reality. And that's what so many of our people don't understand. That nothing changes. Just because you went to Harvard or Yale or Columbia, Seton Hall, Rutgers, or wherever, nothing changes. Their mind is set. If you have something that they produce, you're going to have to pay a higher price for it. All right? It's theirs. All right? You got to understand that. And so when we look at the life of Thurgood Marshall and his impact on the African liberation, I start out with these statements, of which I'm going to back up in a minute. They may be shocking to some. The difference between Thurgood and Clarence Thomas is that Thurgood used his talents to try to get more Negroes into the big house. Clarence Thomas is using his to keep them out. All right? Thurgood used his talents to get more Negroes into the big house. In other words, he was trying to expand the base of house Negroes. If you look at his record, Clarence, on the other hand, is using his talents to keep everybody out of the big house. Now, neither one of them is concerned about the field Negro. All right? Neither one of them is okay. That's not good. Neither Thurgood nor Clarence would have had compassion for Denmark Vesey or Nat Turner. All right? Neither Thurgood nor Clarence would have had mercy for Denmark Vesey or Nat Turner. Now we're looking at this very critically. Thurgood Marshall grew up in Baltimore and went to college at Lincoln University in Oxford, Pennsylvania, about the year 1925. Lincoln University in 1925 would have had all of us arrested if we had been seen on campus with no reason. Because in 1925, Lincoln University had an all-white faculty. You couldn't get a job as a professor or as a part of the trustee board if you was black. That was Lincoln University in 1925. About 1927, the students conducted a referendum on whether Lincoln should hire black teachers to teach a non-white student body. That's 1927. Thurgood Marshall led the controlling faction against the hiring of black teachers. All right? Thurgood Marshall was vehemently opposed to black teachers teaching black students. And so he voted with the majority to keep blacks out of the school. Now, when Thurgood left Lincoln University to go to law school, he really wanted to go to the University of Maryland because he wanted to be taught by white people. But white people rejected him. And therefore, he had a personal revenge, all right, to take up with white folks on his rejection. Now, this is important because there are many of our leaders today who are inspired only because white folks rejected them at some moment in their life. All right? So when we begin to examine the life of Thurgood, we are not examining it as though he was some isolated traitor and that there's no set pattern. Because the reality of it is that there are so many more, even the overwhelming majority of our leadership, even today, think really in the same manner as Thurgood Marshall. All right? So when he went to go to law school then, he was really left with what most blacks were left with, and that was Howard University. It so happened that time-wise, there was a black lawyer there by the name of Charles Hamilton Houston, who was the best black lawyer I've ever known. In fact, the best lawyer I've ever known. All right? Period. And it's unfortunate that very few people know anything about his legacy or who he really was about. But Charles Hamilton Houston was there, and at that time was teaching blacks how to become social engineers in the legal profession. And so Thurgood, graduating from Howard Law School, went back to Baltimore, where he practiced for a few years with no great amount of prosperity, and finally was hired by the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, or NAACP at that time, to work as an associate counsel under Charles Hamilton Houston. And so Thurgood began to get involved in these cases. Now, Charles Hamilton Houston died in 1950, but in the late 40s, it was clear that Charles Hamilton Houston was moving on an international plane, and that he saw the United Nations as a vehicle in which black folks should seek their liberation. Being the kind of outstanding lawyer that he was, obviously this posed a threat. I can only say that he went into the hospital and never came out as a relatively young man in 1950. All right? Now, it was about that same time that there was a court battle going on in various states, Virginia, Delaware, Topeka, Kansas, and Clarendon, South Carolina, in which Thurgood was the lead counsel in South Carolina. Now, much of this is where we are today. That's the reason why it's important to understand why our people reject themselves today. There's a reason why we reject ourselves. There's a reason why more and more of us are beginning to hate ourselves. All right? When the litigation in Clarendon County began, it started as what was called an equalization suit. In other words, black people were not trying to get in white schools. They were trying to get better schools for themselves. Many black teachers understood that if the school was ever integrated, they would be the losers. That's right. All right? Even in 1934, when W.B. Du Bois gave up his role as editor of Crisis magazine and his relationship with NAACP, he stated at that time, even though we know that he had done some other things beforehand, but he stated at that time that it would be wrong for black people to be taught by white teachers because it would cause serious damage to them. And he stated then that black people's condition had gotten worse by 1934 as a result of the NAACP, which was obviously started in 1909 to co-opt the Niagara movement. So when black people were moving toward their own national organization, these white folks, Mary White Overton and others, came in and with money decided that they would establish their organization for us. All right? And felt like they were moving along quite well until Marcus Garvey showed up. And that caused a serious problem because of who Garvey was and what he stood for and the kind of people that he related to. And so obviously he had to be wiped out of the scene because he was messing up with a problem that they were going to resolve in their way. In 1951 or so, when this case went to trial, there was two things very interesting. By that time, Thurgood had decided that instead of an equalization suit, he amended the pleadings and decided that he wanted full-scale integration. Well, that's not surprising when you consider that here's a guy in 1927 voted to have white folks teach black folks. So his whole agenda was to eliminate black people right from the outset. This wasn't just something that came up in 1950. His whole idea of blackness was there was something wrong with it. Yeah. You got to remember now, even when the Black Power movement started and black people started calling themselves black, Thurgood said, I will continue to call you Negroes. I'm not going to use the word black, and never did. All right? He said, no, I'm going to use the word Negro. So when you look at his opinion, his opinion was always written with the word Negro in it. Right. All right? Even after black people started using a more suitable terminology to identify who we are. And so when this case went to trial, Thurgood not only did that, but brought Kenneth Clark in, and Kenneth Clark manipulated the scientific testimony where the scientific test showed that black children who was taught by black teachers in a black setting had a greater love for them than black children who was taught in an integrated setting. He had tested students in Massachusetts, and he had tested students in Arkansas. And the results were that black children in a segregated setting, although maybe the resources may be skimpy, but in that segregated setting where black teachers expressed a love for the children, it made up for the absence of resources. Yes, yes, yes. And so when he went to trial, however, he threw that away. That evidence was never presented, and the lawyers from South Carolina never challenged him on it. And so therefore he was able to put into the record an unscientific test claiming that he examined 16 children in South Carolina, and it showed that being in a black setting was bad. And so we have moved now to a situation where many of our own young people today see everything black as being bad. All right? All right, this is where we are. If it's all black, it's bad. I don't like nothing all black. I don't like the old black stuff. I know a lot of people, even with us, with this struggle that we're having in New York City, a lot of people say, well, man, y'all need to let some white folks in there. You know, things would be all right if y'all let some white folks. I don't know why y'all think that y'all good enough to keep white folks out. All right? There's something wrong with the old black stuff. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine told me that he was running for office up in Buffalo. And he was trying to get the preacher to endorse him. But he was running against a white candidate. The preacher really wanted to endorse a white candidate. No, this is Buffalo. Right, but that must be a bus in every city. All right. All right. And so he decided that rather than to just do an outright endorsement, given the fact he was a black candidate, he would invite both of them to his church. And when he got them to his church, you know, black preachers, they know how to do it. And he said, well, you know, we got a difficult problem here. We have two fine candidates. Mr. Charlie. And on the other hand, we got Joe Blow over here. Both of them are excellent candidates. And I'm sort of torn between who we ought to endorse. He said, but I got a message from up high last night. I consulted him, and I wanted to make sure this thing was done right. And my God told me that everything black need a little lightening up. Y'all know we got a lot of black people on the city council. We need some white people to lighten this thing up. And so I'm not in an all black thing. Because God made all of us. And God don't want to exclude people. And we done got to the point now where we done got black city councilmen, black this, black that. We need a white man in here. And he said that, he liked to have gone through the wall. He liked to have gone through the wall, but it shows you where we have gotten to as a people in terms of this. And it shows you the genesis in a Thurgood Marshall. Because what was going on was him pursuing his own personal agenda. You see, a lot of times when people jump up and say, I am somebody, they are dealing with their own personal problems. All right? Even though all of us don't, I'm somebody too. All right? But he ain't talking about the same thing he's talking about. All right? All right? He's talking about something else. All right? Something that's a little bit deeper that we don't really understand. And so we have these profile Negroes who have their own personal problems. And white folks don't examine them. All right? And they know who they are. And they elevate them, all right? Because it's more convincing when you got your own problem. You see, it's more convincing. So Thurgood was pursuing his own agenda because Thurgood ain't never liked nothing black. I mean, given a choice, I'm sure that if Loving versus Virginia, which sanctioned interracial marriages, had been decided in 28 instead of 68, Thurgood had a white woman. All right? I'm pretty sure that the only difference between him and Clarence is they were born in different times. All right? And I say this because it would be unfair for me to leave you with the idea that Clarence Thomas and Thurgood are exactly the same, because they are not. If indeed there is such thing as a lesser of two evils, Thurgood is certainly the lesser of the two evils. All right? Because Clarence Thomas has a real deep-seated hatred of black people. I mean, with no restraints at all. As I indicated before, Thurgood sees a difference between field Negroes and house Negroes. See, Thurgood wouldn't be at a meeting like this. In fact, if he heard that meeting like it was taking place, he would call the police. All right? All right? And have us arrested. All right? All right? All right? I mean, that's basically what I'm saying, but you can't take away from the fact that his life was so much more different than Clarence, because he did put his life on the line, even though he had his own agenda. So I want everybody to be very clear on that particular point. But as we began to move into his judicial career, the question of was Thurgood Marshall a snitch? Most black lawyers in particular, because the legal profession circumscribes what we can do. In many instances, we can't become law partners in major law firms, all right? And now it only happens on a token basis, all right, every so often. But when Thurgood was practicing law, there was no such thing, even on a token basis, of blacks being in white law firms. And so a person like Thurgood, who was not making a lot of money with the NAACP, had other aspirations. Most black lawyers want to become judges. I mean, that's just basically what they are about. I mean, when I first started practicing law, lawyers would tell me all the time, well, Max, I can't deal with you because I got to keep my nose clean because I want to get on the bench. And once I get in the system, then I can help somebody. Well, once you get in the system and try to help somebody, they're going to liquidate you from the system. See, it's an inconsistency to say what you're going to do when you get in the system. So what they do, recognize when you get ready to do in the system, they're going to get rid of you. The last thing you can ever do something is in the system. All right? So it's no such thing as somebody say, well, brother, once I get in the system, once I become a judge, you know what I mean? And I can solve all matters. Well, once you become a judge and you don't resolve them the way they want you to resolve them, they're going to get rid of you. All right? It's just that simple. All right? So there's no problem there. I mean, Alton Hastings was a federal judge, lifetime employment. But when he went against Reagan on the Haitian issue and didn't do as Reagan and Giuliani wanted him to do on the question of Haitian refugees, the next thing he knew, he was facing a criminal indictment. And then once he beat that, they took him up to the U.S. Senate and hung him. All right? So there's no such thing, you being able to do something once you get in the system. Bruce Wright made a few good rulings, but the next thing Bruce was doing was stamping papers. All right, they gave him a stamp, they stamp all day. All right? And nobody heard of him since. All right? All right? Until he retired. All right? So there's no such thing as what you get ready to do in the system, because the only thing you're going to do in the system is do what you're told if you want to keep getting the paycheck. All right? Otherwise, you would join MADDOX out there on the unemployment line. All right? I mean, that's the way they resolve that, and they keep getting going. All right? So they have no problem with that. But because he wanted to become a judge, he knew that he had to keep his nose clean. But in his case, because federal judicial appointments must be first arise because of an appointment by the president, confirmation by the Senate. But more importantly than that, in his lifetime, he had to be approved by J. Edgar Hoover. All right? Got to remember now, J. Edgar didn't leave us at 72. All right? He went on a federal bench around 1961, United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. He then, in 1965, became Solicitor General of the United States. That means he's the top government lawyer for this country. And then after that, he went to the United States Supreme Court, all while J. Edgar Hoover was stamping the approvals. All right? Now, it's interesting that the same people that J. Edgar Hoover did not like, he didn't like. He didn't like Malcolm X. All right? He didn't like Dr. King. All right? He didn't like neither one of them. All right? In fact, well, he particularly did not like the black Muslims. All right? Because this is a quote. This is a quote. Listen to this. This is a quote. This is a quote that he made at Princeton University. At Princeton University. This is what he said. He says, the black Muslims are being, quote, run by a bunch of thugs organized from prisons and jails and financed, I am sure, by NASA or some Arab group. All right? All right? That's what Thurgood said. Now, let's look at what we just said. The venue was Princeton University. Well, what's Princeton? Princeton is a southern redneck Ivy League school. All right? That's Princeton University, set up by the Presbyterians. All right? And most of the faculty at Princeton at the time that Thurgood went to Lincoln taught at Lincoln part-time. But they brought him back to Princeton to attack the Muslims, and he made sure that he said they are financed by NASA or some Arab group. That's important because he came out of NAACP. All right? And we know who ran that. All right? All right? We know who ran that. So what we are seeing here is a patron, all right, of his benefactors. Now, Princeton University obviously had no other real relationship other than it shows you how devious white people are to select a place that has meaning. See, if you're not reading white folks carefully, you miss the significance of everything they do. Because everything they do is planned to have some meaning. All right? See, the mere fact they brought him back to Princeton was to show the people at Princeton what we have produced. This is the kind of Negro that we have produced. All right? And so, therefore, he came back and served in that capacity. Now, as you look at his legal career, when the issue came up as to Muhammad Ali, Thurgood was the Solicitor General of the United States. Thurgood said the Negro should be behind bars. All right? That was his position. When they said, what should happen? He said, no, put the Negro behind bars. All right? Put him behind bars. And when his case went to the United States Supreme Court, Thurgood had to recuse himself because of the prejudice that he had toward his own people. All right? He had to recuse himself because of the prejudice that he had toward his own people, particularly the black Muslims. You see, so now we're looking at a situation where black people are just as prejudiced in many instances as whites. See, there's a difference between being a racist and being prejudiced. All right? You see, you got a lot of crackers that may not even be prejudiced, but they're racist. Because they're always going to have a racial advantage. You see, whether they like you or not, like some niggas say, well, you know, man, that white man's all right. Why? Because he ain't prejudiced. That's only half for the question. All right, let's assume he's not. What about him being racist? You think he's going to give us his racial privileges? You think he's going to give us his racial advantage? Even if you think he is non-prejudice. But Thurgood obviously could not be a racist, but he is absolutely prejudiced. All right? See, that's the whole analysis that we have to understand, because many of us get caught. Even back then, a lot of people said, well, we bring these white folks in because they're not prejudiced. But that's only part of the test. Even you assume that they are not prejudiced. I mean, which, you know, I don't want to even get into that myself, because I don't have to go through that analysis myself. Of course, some people may want to go through it. It is helpful to understand that they also have their racial philosophy and their racial doctrine. And so we began to realize that here's a man who was against Malcolm X, against Martin Luther King, and against Dr. King primarily because he wanted to be Earl, the HNIC. All right? You see, the real illness that we have in our community today is that nobody want to leave the plantation. Everybody just want a better spot on the plantation. That's right. All right? All right? All right? And so what happened in 1959 going to 60, like they do today, they did then, they had a poll. And the poll was half of the blacks view Thurgood as the black leader, and half of the blacks view Dr. King as a black leader. See, white folks do that to divide us up. All right? See, when they do that, that's when we started snitching on each other. We ain't already been snitching, because we want to enjoy the advantage. You see, now it's a horse race. See, the white, that's how deep he is. He understands that. Then we make it a horse race. Your percentage is 20%, somebody else is 40%. Well, the guy that got 20%, now he's telling more information to bring down the guy that got 40%. All right? See, this is what they get into. So Thurgood then began to attack Dr. King and say that, no, all these marches should not happen. Why should he be marching when we can get it in the courts? That was Thurgood's argument. That's what happened with the Montgomery bus boycott. Thurgood gave no credit to the fact that black folks stayed out for a year. What Thurgood said was Negroes are fools. Because why would they stay out for a year when we went to the court and got a court order? But he didn't understand there was a connection between the court order and black folks boycotting. Just like he also did not understand that black folks was going to get what they got in the civil rights movement, whether Thurgood was there or not. Because something would happen internationally. You see, the African countries was on the move. The Asian countries were on the move. All right? And so even Dean Acheson said back in the early 50s, he said, if we don't solve this civil rights problem, we're going to have a war problem on our hands. All right? That's what the Secretary of State said. All right? So it was going to be resolved anyway. All right? Thurgood just happened to be one of the pawns that were used. All right? And used in a fashion that he would take away his own people in the process. You see, when you start thinking about the Thurgood Marshall legacy that we're dealing with. Now, finally, I have been privileged, and I say this, I have been privileged to meet and be with and strategize in some instances with virtually every so-called black leader in America. What we are primarily dealing with is a group of confidence men. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who go out, make moves to get our confidence, and then sell us out. All right? That's what we're caught up. We got to be very clear and understanding of the confidence men that are out here, whether they are in the civil rights activists, whether they're in politics, whether they're in churches, wherever they are. All right? Talk shows, whatever. All right? I take your word for that, Hal. All right? All right? All right? All right? Wherever they are, the problem is that the revelation on Thurgood is really a microcosm of where black folks are in general. You see, because what has happened is most of our leaders, if you ever heard them in private, you will hear how they really despise us. All right? All right? Now, you're not talking about African-centered leaders. All right? In fact, you're talking about people who don't even know anything about Africa. Or if they mimic something about Africa, something they don't believe, but they heard from Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and figure something to throw in. All right? You understand? All right? All right? Depending upon the audience that they're in at that moment. Okay? But they do not have any respect at all for us, and all of their thirst in life is to get as close to the white man as they can get. All right? Because we have moved from a people of struggling and sacrifice to pleasure and luxury. All right? What people are seeking today is luxury, big cars, big homes, big lifestyles, being able to jet on airplanes and go all over the world and do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it. All right? This is the struggle that we are in. And so as we look at the civil rights legacy, what we begin to realize is that even with all of that, there are those of us who are resisting it nonetheless. That's right. All right? They're resisting this nonetheless. All right? Now, the greatest weapon that we have right now is those cameras. All right? Those cameras. Their technology, that's the greatest weapon. You'll be surprised in all over this country where people like here in New Jersey, over in New York, who, because of our large congregation of people, are able to have these kinds of forums, you'll be surprised the impact it is having nationwide. All right? You'll be surprised the impact. You'll be surprised how this information is spreading all over the country. I go into various places, and people that you don't even think that know you, if they did know you, you probably think they know you from something else. But they don't know you from something else, they know you from this. All right? You'll be surprised the kind of information that is being spread out. And this is the reason why those of us here, we got to take this serious. All right? We got to take this real serious, because this is something that we cannot allow them to destroy. All right? Who we are. We can't allow that. Because you see, they are getting our minds at an early age. All right? At 3 years old, an average child is telling you about McDonald's and Burger King and all of that. All right? They're telling you about it because they got the kind of jingles on television that attract them. All right? And by the time that we get serious in our children, they're already gone. They're already gone. All right? If we don't set up the kinds of mechanisms now, if you read any marketing report, those reports tell you that the way to get the old people to target the children. All right? All right? That's what they do. And so on Saturday morning, they got everything thrown out. All right? On everything, you know, and bombarded. And so many of us will say, get up there and watch TV. I'm tired of you. I want to get some rest. Go there and turn the television on. All right? All right? And the minds are gone. All right? They're gone. They're gone. Because if we don't understand the psychology of this man and how he markets and sells and produce, then we are lost. We're lost. All right? We're lost. We have to get these young minds at 2 years old and bring them up right then and there, because you'll be surprised what is absorbed in a young mind. All right? You'll be surprised. You know, I look at Jordana here a lot of times, and you'll be surprised how naturally this stuff is going through and what it really means. Because I know that because I spent my early age with adults. All right? See, I wasn't one of those who was watching television in the morning. All right? Because, it was surprising to me that, and I really did not know I was this young, but I remember in 1950, and later on in life, I remember the incident, but I really thought I had to be a little bit older. But in 1950, the NAACP convention came to Atlanta. And I lived outside of Atlanta, but I had a lot of relatives in Atlanta. And this week that the NAACP convention was taking place, I was there with my aunt and my uncle, very active, and he brought all this NAACP material in. And I can never forget that I was reading this NAACP publication at 5 years of age. I thought I was much older. But at 5 years of age, I had mastered reading because I do remember reading all about the Korean conflict or the Korean War at that age. Yeah. But I had been going to school since I was 2, 3, and 4. And so and those are the greatest years for acquiring knowledge. See, we kill our young when we don't let them do it then. All right? Because by the time that you're 5, you've accumulated so much. So I always remember this, and it's always stuck with me throughout my life. I remember I opened this book up, and there was this woman in Valdosta, Georgia, in that area. And they had gone and killed her husband. And then they came and got her. And she was pregnant with a child. And the pregnancy that she exhibited did not in any way stem these white people. They took her to a tree. They threw a rope over the tree. They put her neck in the noose. And then they pulled her up. And as she was pulling up and as she was dying, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough pain for them. Somebody said, get a knife. All right? And they said, build a fire. And they built a fire up on her, under her. And then they said, slit her stomach. And the baby, and cut the baby out, and the baby fell into the fire. All right? And she died, the baby burned up. And I never forgot that. All right? I never forgot that. And it became part of me as a human being. All right? And so later on in life, I began to realize the struggle that I had to engage in. I reckon that was my cue for sitting down. Thank you very much. Right? All right. I'll take questions, but okay. About the Dred Scott decision. And I always said that when I went to law school, after I had experienced certain things in life, so I already had a philosophy about what life was about. There were many young people in law school who had gone to undergraduate, who had graduated, who had been insulated from whatever was happening in the real world, and then had gone directly into law school. And so they brought a different kind of experience than I did. By the time that I went to law school, Brother Earl was talking about Leola. Leola and I met about September one year, and I was very much involved in the struggle then, and we was in Georgia, and virtually everywhere I went in Georgia, I was always stopped by the police because of the activity. This was the 60s, and so whenever you were a person who counted the system, they would follow you, they would harass you, and all of that. And I remember this. It was in December. In fact, it was somewhere around this date, or maybe a little bit later, just a little bit. But I was in Noonan, Georgia, and I had really been involved in a lot of voter registration, other things in Noonan. And this cop saw me in a no-loading zone, and he pulled up behind me as though I had just raped 10 white women, and he didn't want to hear nothing. And so obviously he had something else on his mind. And about another squad car or so came there, and they got me out, threw me in one of the cars, and drove me at a high rate of speed down to City Hall. You know, it's amazing how white folks just get irrational. You know what I mean? I mean, they got you handcuffed in the back, and they start getting down on the accelerator, acting a fool, and beating upside the automobile with their flashlights, you know, and the whole bit. So, I mean, to the average lawyer who has never witnessed these things, they don't understand that. They don't understand how white folks go into a craze. I mean, they just go mad, you know what I mean, when they go into these things. But you have to have been a person under arrest or something like that, which I had many times. So I always felt as though my being whatever I was in the courtroom related to my experience. And, you know, it was always interesting because sometimes white people write something on you, your bio, and they will always say, you know, he doesn't like white people because we beat him up 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't reason enough, you know what I mean? All right? You know what I mean? But that kind of stuff, you know, they right, you know. I mean, we you know, that kind of stuff. So, anyway, the thing about getting a beating is that when they start beating you, I mean, they work themselves up in the prison. So I remember this car just flying down the street and then making turns. Like we was on the Indianapolis 500, you know. And then when we got in front of City Hall, I just heard the car just, you know, and just shriek. And I said, well, what are these fools doing? So I reckon, you know, like, white folks started seeing this, so all these other crackers got in their cars and stuff, and they were all flying behind, you know what I mean? So they must know this was a routine, you know what I mean? And so when we got to City Hall, they then just started beating me and beating me. By that time, they drove me out of the car, and everybody just started stomping and everything, you know, and it was just every white person, you know what I mean? It wasn't like it was just the cops. It was just everybody in sight, you know, just got a piece of it. And so, you know, they threw me in the cell, and I was bleeding profusely. My eyes were really just about gouged out, you know. It's amazing that I can even see the kind of beating that was inflicted on me. But those kinds of experiences sort of made me very sensitive. So I went to law school, and I was there the first few days, and I got a chance to, you know, go through the book Constitution Law and all of that, and I read Dred Scott. And when I read that, you know, it was like saying, well, I don't need to read another case in law school. I don't need to read another case because there's no other case that can adequately explain our status in America, even today, than Dred Scott. That's right. All right, even today. I mean, even O.J. is finding that out. Yeah. All right? You know what I mean? I mean, like, you know, they say, okay, well, you know, we don't introduce lie detector results in the case, but hey, that's O.J. over there. Yeah, put it in. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, you know, yeah, just another Negro, throw it in. You know what I mean? And maybe we might say it's harmless error, you know, later, you know, or it doesn't really mean anything, but you begin to understand that, you know, that you don't have any rights that they are bound to respect. You see, you begin to understand that, you know, and even in my practice of law, I cite this, I'm still working on this, but this happened, and some of you have heard me say this, but I reckon the most bizarre case that I ever ran into when I was practicing law was a time when Reverend Sharpton and I was up in Albany, New York, and I really got to get a transcript of this case because nobody ever believed this until they see this transcript. But I walked into the courtroom of Reverend Sharpton, and we had a pretrial conference. We were waiting on the judge. He was entertaining himself with another case, and he had it's all-white jury there, and then he had the court bailiffs. They was all white. He had the court stenographer was white. The court clerk was white. The defendant's lawyer was white. The prosecution was white. Everything in the courtroom was white except the defendant. And he was black, you know what I mean? And so I go and sit down, and to my amazement, and this really happened, to my amazement, they had a dog on the witness stand. A dog. A dog. All right? It was a burglary case. All right? And the dog was supposed to have been the witness. All right? To the burglary. All right? No, that's real. That's real. All right, that's real. That's real. All right, that's real. No, I'm serious. That's real. All right? Brother Noonan, no, that's real. No, I'm serious. I'll tell you. Well, obviously, the judge had thought about that. So he had a dog interpreter. All right. All right. All right, I'm serious. He had a dog interpreter. All right. All right. And the dog interpreter said, yeah, Judge, this Negro did it. All right. All right. Yeah, he did it. All right. And the judge said, that's it. I don't need to hear no more. And that was the end. I'm serious. I mean, and it shows you. It really shows you. I mean, really, just exactly where we are in America. And you got to remember, Justice Taney. Many people denigrate Justice Taney, but around 1990, the American Association of Law Professors distributed a questionnaire to all of the law professors in this country, and they asked them for the 10 greatest jurists ever in America. And these are law professors in 1990 who said that of those 10, Justice Taney was one of the greatest. All right? And he authored the Dred Scott decision. This is 1990, talking about a decision that came out in 1850. And they said that this was one of America's greatest jurists. All right? And, you know, Justice Taney said this republic was never established to recognize any rights of people that was imported here from Africa. That's right. All right? That's real. And no Negro has any rights that whites are bound to respect. All right? All right, that's what he said. You got to remember now, you know the interesting thing about our struggle? The Civil Rights Public Accommodation Bill was passed in 1964. But a stronger public accommodation bill had been passed in 1875. Right. All right? A stronger public accommodation bill had been passed nearly 100 years earlier, and was finally invalidated by the U.S. Supreme Court after the Hayes-Tilden Compromise. You see, because they horse traded in there, and we were part of the horse trading. All right? And the South said, if you give these Negroes back to us, we'll let Hayes be the president. All right? And so they said, okay, fine. That's all we have to give up. We'll put y'all back in their hands. And the interesting thing today is that as you look at the American government, the South won the war. Yes, sir. Yes. You got a Southern cracker as the president. You got the Senate Majority Leader from Mississippi, and you got the House of Representatives Speaker from Georgia. All right. Now, if the South didn't win, I don't know who did. All right. The Vice President from Tennessee. All right. All right. All right. All right. And that is what we are facing, and that is what we are facing in terms of that. So it is absolutely certain that, you know, when Justice Taney said that, and you look at any case ever since, it can always be decided on that, because you got to remember, black people are not going into Woolworth or Holiday Inn or Ramada Inn or whatever on these highways. They're not going in there because they have rights under the 14th Amendment. Because when the constitutionality of the 64 Accommodation Bill came up, they said, no, it's not the 14th Amendment that they have a right to eat, it's the Commerce Clause. And that's interesting because we've always been a part of commerce. The reason why the Commerce Clause was drafted in the first place to make sure we could be moved from one state to the other. So them moving us from one state to the other now is like they're moving us from one state to the other 200 years ago. All right, under the same proposition, but they refused to say that we had a right under the 14th Amendment to public accommodations. And so as we look at where we are now, we are actually worse off legislative-wise than we were 100 years ago. Even though we've been struggling 100 years in the process, but legislative-wise, we are actually worse off today. All right? And so that's the reason why I said that whenever I'm involved in any, was ever involved in any case, I never fooled myself to believe that my client had constitutional rights. All right? As a matter of fact, what was interesting was, in the latter days of my practice, I never wanted any hearings, nothing. I just said, put 12 people in the box and let's go. Because I had gotten to the point then where I realized it was a waste of time to even bring on these motions, because in many instances, these judges, even if they saw error, they would say it's harmless. All right? So the best thing that I could do was go to 12 people in the box and plead my cause. All right? And forget about constitutional rights at all. You hear a lot of people start arguing about, well, I got a right to this, I got a right. You're just wasting your time. All right? You just waste your time. I mean, when I represented Reverend Sharpton, I came back from upstate, and this is the result of it. I came back from upstate, and I said, Sharpton, I said, there's no way in the world that I can try your case before this judge. All right? Even though the way that thing was set up, we were supposed to try his case up there first, because he had 2 cases, 3 counts in Albany, 6, 7 counts in New York. I called the judge in New York, and from up there, and I said, Judge Carey, I want an immediate conference. We went to the conference. I told her, I said, look, I'm ready to go to trial right now. And so she said, well, you can't go to trial right now, Mr. Mack, because you filed all these motions, all that. Forget about these motions. Throw them out the window. She said, but you got a right to try to suppress this or that. I said, I'm not thinking about suppressing anything. Because I knew that if I had to go back to Albany with this madman sitting on the bench, all right, I knew I was in trouble. So I figured I had a better shot with 67 in Manhattan than 3 up there, all right? And so the long and short of it was the prosecutor argued vociferously. You know, he said, well, look, Maddox don't know what he's doing. All lawyers know you got to have motions and all that to protect your client's rights. And the Attorney General now is very concerned about Reverend Sharpton's rights. I said, well, when did y'all ever get concerned about Reverend Sharpton's rights? All right? But the Attorney General now is all concerned about Reverend Sharpton's rights. Well, the long and short of it is that the judge said, look, if Mr. Maddox is doing all of that, then he got a right to go now. See, that was a strategic move, because we went and we did the 67 counts. Now, in the middle of that, I was suspended. However, this is the interesting point. The 67 counts and the acquittal on those 67 counts should have precluded a prosecution on the 3 counts. Because if you did not have the income that they claimed that you had, then there was no liability on your part to file a report income that the jury just said you never had. All right? Because we had just warned that said he didn't have the income. All right? Now, you got 3 counts up in Albany. And this is the interesting part. They said, no, we're going to go further with the 3 counts. Well, by that time, I couldn't practice law anymore, because I was suspended in the course of the Sharpton trial, but I was able to stay on, and we won it, but that was the end of it for me. All right, so I was suspended in the middle of it. 7 years, it'll be 7 years coming up in May. And so his new lawyer said, well, we're going to sue claiming that this is double jeopardy. All right? Now, when the case got up to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, guess who came to dinner? Thurgood Marshall. Now, we're not talking about the Supreme Court of the United States. We're talking about the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, which is a lower court, and this man has resigned or retired from the bench. But they sent him to decide against Al Sharpton. All right? Okay, now, this is the point. I don't know why they wanted Reverend Sharpton so. It could have been because of his civil rights activities. It could have been because of Don King. It could have been about a number of things. I'm not going to speculate. All right? But what it shows is that they wanted him to such extent that apparently Marshall owed the FBI a favor. Yeah. And even after he was off the bench, nearly in his deathbed, they had to wheel that man into that courthouse to rule against Al Sharpton. All right? All right? That is how, you see, and in the meantime, obviously, they want to rally me because, you know, the average person, see, this is an interesting thing now. You talk about information. I know that there are a lot of cases that lawyers represent clients on that they throw. I know that. They have to throw them, all right? Not that they have to throw them, but they do throw them in order to maintain their lifestyle. All right? They have to throw it. Now, as I said before, they obviously wanted Reverend Sharpton for some reason. The FBI wanted him for some reason. All right? Why they wanted him, I don't know. All right? There are a number of guesses that people could make, but they all wanted him for some reason. When things were not going good, they brought me over to the Brooklyn courthouse in the grievance committee and said, now this is during the time I'm representing him. They bring me over to the Brooklyn courthouse and with a court stenographer, they say, all right, raise your hand, we're going to swear you in. I said, me to do what? We need to get some testimony from you on Tawana Brawley. And I said, well, you know I'm in the middle of a trial right now. They said, yeah, we know that. That's why we need the testimony. I said, well, let me ask you this. Is this only going to be Tawana Brawley, or is it going to be Al Sharpton? Or is it going to be what? They said, no, it's going to be whatever we want. All right? Whatever we want. All right? Now, can you imagine? Now, check this out. What they would have done is, if I had gone along with it, they would have sworn me in. I give up all the information I know on Sharpton. Then they go back to court and offer it against Sharpton and say, your lawyers told us this is what you said. Your lawyer gave you up. You see what I'm saying? See, this is how these people play. You see, this is how they play, you know. And when they get over there, you know, like they told me, if you don't go along with this, it's over for you. The jig is up, all right? You see, and that's how they play. I mean, they really play hardball. You know, some of us mouth what Malcolm said. Some of us say, by any means necessary. Well, white folks believe that. You understand? White folks believe that. We may be mouthing it, all right? But that's real with them. By any means necessary. All right? That's how they operate. All right? You understand? All right? That's how they operate. All right? That's the real world. They don't back up at all. When they want you, they bring somebody in and they say, hey, here it is. Believe me, that's the deal. And these people are dead serious. I mean, they're dead serious. I mean, you know, it's amazing how we can feel so comfortable in America. All right? With the viciousness of these people. You know what I mean? It's amazing how we can just be comfortable. We go home. We let them guard us at night. You know what I mean? We let them take us out to the hospitals. You know what I mean? And all of that. I mean, you know, it's amazing. I mean, you know what I mean? Call 911. You know what I mean? I mean, it's amazing how we can just, you know, can just be so calm. It really is. It really, this is serious, you know. So that is basically what it is. And at this time, Brother Nuna, thank you very much. All right.